Welcome back to the Leverage Advantage Show, and today we have Martin Nygate, the CEO and co-founder of Velox Networks. And Velox is a licensed telecommunications service provider, or TSP, in Singapore that's extending the voice-over IP revolution to SMEs by providing a fully featured cloud-based PBX with zero capital investment. Now, with a rapidly growing customer base, Martin has shown that startups are still able to disrupt existing TSPs like Singtel and StarHub. Martin's a seasoned entrepreneur with a penchant for startup success. He's made a career out of delivering profitable high-tech sales and communication solutions to the maritime and software industry, spanning in Asia and Europe. Thank you so much for being with us, Martin.
Sure, and thank you for having me, Faisal, and welcome to all of your viewers.
Thank you. One of the questions I'd love to ask you is this. You mentioned that your company is right now really competing with companies like Singtel and StarHub. And for me, in my experience, I've always thought that only big companies with hundreds or even billions of dollars are able to build a telecommunication provider. How is your company, a startup, able to do that?
Yes, well, actually, it's not that difficult. You see, the old days of creating a telco and investing millions and billions of dollars in creating an infrastructure of copper cables to transmit voice calls, those days are over. And if we take as an example products that you use today yourself, WhatsApp, WeChat, Skype, Line, Viber, whatever, these are telecommunications products. You make calls with WhatsApp or Skype. And let's look at WhatsApp for a second. Well, WhatsApp was bought for billions of dollars. And at that time when they were bought, they were servicing about 850 million users worldwide. And they employed 50 people. Take AT&T. Now, AT&T is one of the world's largest telcos. They employ about 250,000 people. And they service about 259 million subscribers worldwide. Telcos can't compete. Singtel is another good example. Well, Singtel employ 26,000 people here in Singapore. You realize I can cover the whole of Singapore with VoIP. If every business in Singapore uses VoIP, I wouldn't employ more than 100 people. And why is that? Well, that's because I do not need the infrastructure that companies like Singtel and StarHub need. They deployed copper cables throughout the island and telcos globally. But we don't need those cables anymore because you, me, everyone today has the internet. And the internet is the network for transmitting voice communications as well as other forms of data. And for that reason, we don't need to have the billions of resources that some of these telcos have. And it's relatively simple.
Well, you mentioned copper cables, and I think one of the things I understand about the technology is what we call over the top technology, OTT. So basically, it works over the infrastructure that's already been built by, say, StarHub or Singtel. What if, like, for example, we can't have an economy that just runs completely on the internet without those copper cables, right? So we would definitely need these big telcos that fill out that infrastructure. Now, how are these telcos responding to the competition they're getting from you then?
Okay, well, first of all, the answer is we don't need those copper cables. All copper cables worldwide are in the process of being phased out.
Okay.
Explain it to very, very simply, right? All telcos have two networks today. They have a voice network and they have a data network. Right? The voice network runs the copper cables. The data network runs the LAN cables and the internet. Okay? Everything is moving from voice to data. Everything. And the voice networks are either dead or dying. Okay? And all telcos worldwide are in the process of phasing out those copper cables. Now, why? I'll give you an example. When you drive home tonight or when you walk around the streets, on every street corner, you'll see a metal cabinet, right? And that's owned by the telco. That metal cabinet is an electromechanical switch to transmit the voice calls from copper over to data. Now, in the world of the future telecommunications, all of these metal cabinets, which are serviced by thousands and thousands of employees, all of these all of these cabinets are now redundant. That is the reason why all telcos are moving from voice to data, eliminating the copper and remaining with the data networks. In the future, all telcos, from Singtel, StarHub to AT&T to Vodafone, will become conduits of data. They'll be suppliers of data. And it's companies like you mentioned, OTT companies or companies licensed like ourselves, who will be providing the services over the LAN infrastructure, over the internet infrastructure delivered by the telcos. So let's think about it as Singtel for a second. So Singtel has two networks, the voice network and the data network. And you ask how they are responding to this new dynamics. Singtel have a really, really big problem. If you think of the CEO of Singtel going to his board of directors and saying to them, hey guys, you remember that $10 gazillion we spent on that voice network? We now have to write it off because that's what they have to do. And for Singtel, that is extremely difficult for all telcos. The more enlightened telcos globally have already come to that conclusion and are writing off the copper network and moving everything over to the data network. And that is the future of telecommunications. This is why it is so disruptive.
Awesome. Tell me though, how did you get started in this business?
Well, in the business of telecommunication, we got started because we actually developed some unique technology that allowed us to deliver VoIP, voice over internet calls, at a very, very low bandwidth, so consumption. So going back 4 or 5 years ago, at that time, we had developed this unique technology that allowed us to deliver VoIP calls at 80% less bandwidth than Skype, Line, Viber, WhatsApp, and WeChat. And we did this because of our heritage in the maritime industry for satellite communications. And at that time, we were the only VoIP application in the world that worked perfectly well over 2G, congested 3G, uncongested 3G, 4G, and even over satellite. And as a result, we developed an app called Nanu that we launched globally, and we had millions of users in emerging economies. However, whereas this technology was revolutionary and highly successful, it was a technological marvel and a commercial failure because our customers, who are people in emerging economies, couldn't afford to pay for the service that we provided. And that's when we essentially shut it down and started Velox, which is a B2B, business to business service as opposed to business to consumers. Because in the end of the day, you as a consumer, like other consumers, tend to use free applications, Skype, Line, and Viber, WhatsApp, and WeChat, to make free calls. But businesses are different. Businesses require high quality calls, robust, dependable phone calls to make business deals. And for that, they are willing to pay. And that is the premise behind Velox. We supply businesses with the infrastructure to make high quality calls at an extremely low cost, between 80 to 95% cheaper than Singtel StarHub. And as you mentioned before, with zero capital investment.
That's amazing. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've learned from that story is really that it's your agility and your nimbleness to understand that what you had was great technology, but it wasn't great business, and you had to make that pivot, that shift to realize who is most likely to pay you money for what you have. I think sometimes the people that extract the greatest value may not necessarily be willing or able to pay for our services. What was that point when you realized? Tell me about that point when you realized that you were you were targeting the wrong people, and that you needed to make a shift in your business.
Well, we were targeting the right people. It was just those people couldn't pay us. And so the answer is very simple. When we ran out of money, because to support the infrastructure that we had with our previous incarnation in Nanu, we needed funding. And whereas we were growing massively, that funding eventually was destined to dry up. So we had to pivot from the B2C environment to the business-to-business environment, and to deal with people who wanted to pay for high-quality calls, because we were giving high-quality calls to people who couldn't afford to pay. So when we realized that, that's when we pivoted to the B2B model, which is vastly more successful.
Awesome. And moving from B2C to B2B, of course, the way that you market has to be very, very different, right? And for a lot of B2B customers, their behavior is already ingrained. A lot of them require some education as to why they would need to shift. Like even if you give them, even if you tell them that the cost is lower, there is that change risk, and there's also a lot of sunk cost in the capital investment that they've already put up for their own PBX infrastructure. How were you able to educate them in a way that made them willing to change?
Okay, the answer again is quite simple. Our core target market are companies that are looking to buy, replace or upgrade a PBX. Okay, so if we take a company in your own building where they were looking to move to a new floor, and they had a choice, they could either buy an on-premise or off-premise PBX, and that would have cost them tens of thousands of dollars, or they could get the full functionality of a high-end PBX with zero capital investment, which is why they chose Velox. The answer is very simple. Either you spend $10, $20, $30,000 on a PBX, or you don't. It's that simple. And that's why we are growing at a massive rate today, because anyone that's in the business or in the process of buying, replacing, or upgrading a PBX, it's just a simple choice. You can either pay for it or get it for free.
Excellent, excellent. That's a really good point. So basically what you did was you got them at that point where they're making that decision and giving them that additional alternative. I love it. Tell me, Martin, what is a big tip or some advice you can give to our listeners when it comes to creating leverage in their business?
Well, one of the advice that I can give is that if you're working in a startup environment and you're dealing with investors, so the mantra in the investment community 6-7 years ago was very simple: grow, 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 don't worry about monetization, right? And that's where you've got companies like Uber, you've got Nanu, and many other companies who have grown to massive size, or WhatsApp for that case. WhatsApp never made a penny, right? However, the dynamics in the economy have now changed, and now it's all about where's the money. So the advice I would give is focus on the business model and the revenue generation, and the growth will come after that. If you don't make money, you're going to have a problem. And I think this goes back to the very basics of what we all learned in business school, is there's only one reason to build a business, and that is to make money.
Awesome. And if you were to go back in time, you've been in the industry for a very, very long time. You've been in business for a very, very long time. But if you could go back in time 10 years and tell your old self one thing, what would that be?
I suppose I moved from becoming an employee to becoming an employer, moving from from working for other people to working for myself, probably around about 15 years ago. I think that I should have probably moved earlier. I prefer to work and to build things for myself than building businesses for others. So if I was to go back in time, probably advice would be that even though it's scary to become an entrepreneur and to build your own business, even though there's less stability and there's less ability to forecast the future, it would have been the right thing for me to do. And I'm glad I did it when I did.
Awesome. And what does ultimate leverage mean to you? It's different for everyone, but what does ultimate leverage look like to you?
Leveraging off different elements of the business for the benefit of the business, and where there's leveraging off the capabilities of the employees, which is probably the most important component, to leveraging off the abilities of our business partners, and leveraging off the strengths of all stakeholders in the business for the benefit of the business.
Okay. And so what we're going to do now is we come to that part of the interview where we ask you some quick fire questions. I'll just ask you a couple of questions. And what I'd love for you to do is just share with me what comes to you at the top of your mind.
Sure.
Cool. So the first question is, what's the best advice you've ever received?
My heritage, my core background is in sales and marketing. And one of my managers said to me many, many years ago, because remember, salespeople tend to talk a lot. And one of my managers said to me, he said, remember, Martin, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you should use them in that ratio, 2 to 1. Good advice.
Excellent. And share with me one of your personal habits that you strongly believe contributes to your success.
I'm a morning person, and I tend to wake up early in the morning, and that's the time that I find that I solve problems, and I think my thinking process is the best. So I tend to get into work early and to focus on the heavy lifting, the heavy duty problems that I have, to try and find a solution. So as a morning person, the habit that I have is to get to work early before anyone else, to spend time thinking about some of the issues that I need to address during the course of the day.
Excellent. And what is one book you would recommend as a must read?
Probably one of the oldest books in history, the Bible. The Bible is full of wisdom, and I think it's a good idea for anyone to read the Bible as often as possible. There are lessons that we can all learn from the Bible.
All right. And finally, if you had 30 seconds left to live, what piece of advice would you give?
Follow your dreams. Never give up. It's very difficult being an entrepreneur. It's very difficult with all of the challenges that an entrepreneur faces. But if you believe in yourself, never, never, never give up, because ultimately you will succeed.
I love it. I love it. In fact, like just that alone really reminds me of something that I read recently, is that an entrepreneur is someone who's crazy enough to work 14 or 18 hours a day when he could work 9 to 5, earning the same amount of money.
Yes, it's about passion, and it's about living your dream. And that's what I try and do.
Excellent. Tell me, if anybody's interested in finding more about you, if the audience is interested in finding more about you, where should they go?
Well, they can go to the website, which is www.myvelox, that's myvelox.com. So it's myvelox.com. And they can go onto our website. There is a place on the website to put in their comments. Or they can email me directly at m.nygate, that's Nygate, m.nygate at myvelox.com. And they can contact me directly. Feel free.
Excellent. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We're really humbled, honored, and grateful that you are here and decided to invest your time with us. Thank you so much, and have a nice day, Martin. Hopefully we'll get to see each other in Singapore soon.
Very good. Look forward to it. Thank you very much, Fazil. Thanks.
Hey there, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, check out the relevant video here, and don't forget to subscribe to us for more marketing tips, techniques, strategies that are working for us, or just more behind the scenes fun. See ya.